Days Gone is a very polarizing game. Some see it as just another zombie survival, while others view it as an underrated gem that deserves more love. As you can probably tell from the title of this video, I am firmly in the latter category. That's why I am excited to take a deep dive into Days Gone to not only break down if it's a game worth playing, but also to explore why it didn't get the reception many hoped for. At its core, the world of Days Gone is pretty much your typical post-apocalyptic setting. A virus outbreak turns people into run-of-the-mill zombies, and society crumbles. While this setup provides a solid foundation for any zombie story, it doesn't bring much new or unique to the table. People crave something special. They want mushroom zombies, parkour, towering monstrosities, and living plants fighting armored zombies on vehicles. Okay, maybe not the last one, but you get the idea. In Days Gone, there is nothing quite like that. You're just a guy, Deacon St. John, a former biker gang member trying to survive in a world overrun by the undead. Zombies?
The freaks?
It's freakers.
Okay, freakers feel pretty generic. They are predictable, very dumb, move at human speeds, don't see or hear well, hibernate during the day and hunt at night, exhibiting standard zombie behaviors without much innovation. The one real twist is their tendency to clump together into massive swarms, which can be both terrifying and exhilarating. It's a neat trick, but not a total game changer. I guess all this is one of the reasons people overlooked this game. At first glance, Days Gone appears very shallow, with nothing unique to catch the eye, especially since the early hours are indeed slow and the world takes time to reveal its depths. But if you give it a chance, I believe it will surprise you. What unexpectedly elevates Days Gone for me is its exploration of post-apocalyptic humans. Days Gone's human landscape is as fractured as the broken world itself. It's fascinating to see how regular people cope with the apocalypse. There are drifters like our main hero, survivors who exist outside societal structures, always on the move and not a permanent part of any camp. As a drifter, you travel and interact with all these different groups. Each camp has its own story and its own way of dealing with the new world. This journey becomes a window into the diverse ways people try to survive and rebuild after the fall.
I'll do whatever it takes.
Someone creates a cult full of crazy people using narcotics, cutting themselves and worshipping zombies by behaving like them. Others set up a labor camp that restricts the freedom of people inside, operating on the rule: if you want to eat, you need to work.
You! Get your ass back to work! Don't make me go get Cyrus!
This camp is essentially a slave encampment.
They won't let me leave.
But people have little choice, since the alternative is to live in the wilderness, where they would likely be eaten by zombies or killed by bandits. A glimmer of hope exists in a camp striving for a democracy. Equality, cooperation and fairness are their core values. They establish laws, seek peaceful coexistence with other camps, and believe in resolving conflict without resorting to violence. But will it actually work in a world like this. In stark contrast, others form a full-scale military force with ranks, uniforms, and a war-centric ideology. They believe the only way to survive is to wage war against zombies.
Freaks.
By amassing weapons, machines and explosives to kill, burn and bomb the freakers, they hope to secure a future. Beyond these large-scale societal structures, there are plenty of personal stories about coping with tragedy. Some try to forget everything and live peacefully, even building new relationships. Some become obsessed with trauma and death, driving themselves to madness.
I learned that too. That's why we need to be just like them.
While not all of these stories are incredibly deep or fully developed, they carry emotional weight and offer interesting insights into how people manage to live in such a harsh world. I'll delve into these stories a bit more later. Before moving on, I want to talk about one glaring inconsistency that kept nagging at me. Everyone rides a motorcycle. It makes sense for Deacon, a former biker, but why is everyone else a biker too? This is a way more dangerous and less efficient way of transportation than cars. The game kind of explains this by implying that the roads are too blocked to navigate, so you need something maneuverable. But it's not like they couldn't be cleared. Besides, at some point we see people manage to ride full convoys of cars and even trucks. This is likely just a gameplay limitation, as the developers didn't want to code cars into the game. But it's fun to imagine that for some reason everyone in this version of Oregon is such an avid biker that they stick to motorcycles even in the post-apocalypse, just because they love them so much. It may seem odd, because it's not what people typically know this game for or expect from it. But for me, immersion became one of the most defining and noticeable aspects of the whole game. Days Gone pulls you into its desolate world in ways that are both subtle and striking. The atmosphere in Days Gone is undeniably immersive. The game does a fantastic job of portraying a bleak, desolate world. The United States Pacific Northwest setting is beautifully rendered, with dynamic weather, changing seasons, and a day-night cycle that affects gameplay. As you ride through the decayed remnants of civilization, you can feel the weight of the apocalypse. Abandoned towns, overgrown highways, and makeshift survivor camps all contribute to the sense of a world that has moved on from its human inhabitants. Days Gone succeeds in creating a world that feels alive and dangerous. The sound design complements this perfectly, with the eerie noises of freakers in the distance, the growl of Deacon's motorcycle, and the ambient sounds of the wilderness. The sense of isolation as you navigate the world is palpable. One of the strongest aspects of immersion in Days Gone for me was its characters, particularly the way they sound.
You are writing checks with other men's blood!
The people you meet in this world don't feel like actors playing a role. They feel like real survivors of a post-apocalypse. Their mannerisms, way of talking and behavior all contribute to a sense of realism.
Come on, I'm gonna tell you about Lost Lake. It has the clearest water you have ever seen. And the fish, oh my God. The fish in the morning, they jump this high. I'll show you. When we go, we're gonna have such a good time. Make sure you hold on tight, okay? Ready?
They sound very troubled and constantly on edge, often talking under their breath or mumbling.
Sure, Mike. Whatever you say, I'm on board.
Deacon St. John is a standout in this regard.
Nests. I gotta clear them out. I gotta make it safer to ride through here.
I've seen people say his voice acting sounds weird and unnatural. And yeah, he is weird. He sounds unhinged.
They look pretty broken to me, Cope, but hey, whatever you say. Nothing wrong with a little crass commercialism. Hell, I could use a new bike right about now.
But that's exactly as you'd expect a rough biker who lost the love of his life and has killed zombies and people daily for 2 years straight to sound.
Well, then let me enlighten you. I spent the last 2 years killing freaks. One by one, up close, so close that I could smell the flesh rotting between their teeth. So
His mental health is clearly shattered, and it's evident in every word he says.
Jesus Christ, Mike, do you have any idea what the fuck you've done?
Yeah.
I believe this portrayal makes him more relatable and grounded, making it easier to connect with Deacon as a character. The way the game handles zombie swarms, freaker swarms, also deserves a mention. Encountering a horde is a genuinely terrifying experience that forces you to think on your feet. The sight of hundreds of zombies
Goddamn freaks.
moving as one entity is both impressive and frightening, creating some of the game's most memorable moments.
Oh shit, freaks!
You know what? No more freakers. Listen, it's a dumb name. I don't get why people try to avoid the word zombie when creating zombie apocalypse stories, especially when their zombies are not even that unique. You are not being clever or coy, this just feels uninspired.
The freak show.
The freaks!
A freak.
Freaks. The freak show. Freaks. Freaks. The freaks.
Freaks.
Freak.
It's freakers.
The freak show.
Freaks. The freaks. Freaks. Freaks.
Freak show and shit.
Freaks!
The freaker.
The freaks are freaks!
And if you do decide to go that route, then at least come up with something truly interesting. Freaks, isn't it?
Out freak the freaks.
Although Days Gone is set during a zombie apocalypse, it doesn't seem to aim to be a horror game. While there are certainly spooky moments and an atmosphere of unease, the game avoids the typical horror elements. No jump scares and almost no excessively dark environments. Nights are bright enough to navigate, and while infected are a threat, they aren't designed to be terrifying in the way traditional zombies often are. I believe this approach kind of enhances immersion. It's easier to stay engaged with the game world when you're not constantly on edge. This allows for a deeper connection to the story and characters, as you're not constantly distracted by the need to change the underwear. Do you know what unexpectedly adds immensely to all this immersion? the difficulty setting. I think this is also one of the reasons this game did not get the recognition it deserves, as most people won't even consider playing on the hardest difficulty. I can't blame them. In many games, higher difficulty levels are uninspiringly hard, turning the game into a grindfest and turning enemies into damage sponges. Yes, I'm looking at you, Horizon Zero Dawn. And you too, Grounded, don't think I forgot you. But I can assure you that playing Days Gone on survival makes the game much more engaging and immersive without making it too difficult. It's one of the few games that manages to get difficulty right. You see, the game does not descend to cheap tricks, like mindlessly increasing enemy HP through the roof or making them one-shot you. Regular enemies still die from one good headshot, while tougher foes, like bears, will actually require strategic use of your arsenal. The main change in survival difficulty is the removal of most HUD elements. Gone are the minimap, weapon UI and health and stamina bars. The only thing that remains is the waypoint, and that's it. You can still access all the HUD elements by pressing the survival vision button, but they appear for roughly 5 seconds and disappear again. The survival vision itself is also nerfed. On lower difficulties, it's basically a free cheat that highlights all interactable objects and even enemies through walls. Nope, nothing like that on survival. Of course, this is a matter of preference, but I don't think you need any of that to enjoy the game. On the contrary, it makes it much more immersive to play without it. When you actually have to scour the area and look around for supplies, instead of pressing a button to highlight everything, it really changes how you approach the game. This forces you to truly explore environments. It's even more impactful with enemies. When they can surprise you by sneaking up behind you, it's a lot more intense, rather than when you can magically see them outlined through walls. The one HUD element that feels missed at times is the minimap. Navigating the vast open world without it can be challenging, especially when you're off the road in the middle of the forest. Getting lost is a real possibility. While the first few hours were a struggle, I quickly adapted and never looked back. Learning to rely on landmarks, the environment and your in-game knowledge becomes very rewarding. This stripped-down approach may not be for everyone, but it encourages a deeper connection with the world, and there's this sense of accomplishment when you successfully navigate by yourself. Besides all that, survival mode also turns off fast travel. From the sound of it, no fast travel seems like a significant problem, but in this game it's actually quite nice, considering how important your bike and riding it are to the core of the game. The fuel management, the constant encounters on the road, and the fact that the world isn't that big makes it more immersive rather than frustrating or annoying. But it's still a double-edged sword. On one hand, restricting fast travel can feel like a time waste, especially once you've discovered the most interesting points along the road. On the other hand, it is pretty engaging and immersive. Riding in Days Gone is fun, and even familiar roads can be enjoyable as you start recognizing landmarks and remembering spots to stop for a nap.
I'm just gonna grab some shut-eye.
You discover hidden nooks and crannies, appreciate the scenery on repeat journeys. The world becomes less like a game map and more like a home. But no matter how immersive and fun it is, because the game is very long, it will, without a doubt, become repetitive. At one point in the game, there's a section with a vast, frequently traversed stretch of map that can become tedious, pushing the boundaries of even the most patient players. I'll be honest, at that point, I started cheating. On PC, you can install a mod that allows a lot of things, basically DevTools. Sometimes, when the road seemed way too tedious, I used it for fast travel. I thought, guess it's just too hard to design a game that avoids repetitiveness entirely. Then story development happened and it introduced a new location that completely revitalized the experience. Suddenly, the tedium of backtracking faded away, replaced by a fresh and engaging environment. In the end, I totally forgot that I had ever cheated or had any problems without fast travel. I enjoyed riding through the map immensely. Ultimately, playing on survival was absolutely the right choice. While a lower difficulty might have offered a smoother ride, it wouldn't have fostered the same level of immersion and connection with the world. The limitation of repetitive travel was a small price to pay for such a richly rewarding experience. Wait, that's it? There's a lot more to unpack. What about the gameplay, the story, final thoughts on the game as a whole? You can't just end your retrospective here. You're right, videos like this take a lot of time and effort, so I decided to break it down into slices like this. The next videos and the full retrospective diving into those other aspects are coming soon, hopefully. So maybe subscribe so you don't miss them. And if you're feeling generous, a like and a comment would be awesome. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you in the next one.
Out freak the freaks.